There you go. So I did it again. I started with so. I guess that works. Why so serious? Um, I've got my friend Steven. I have been friends with him for a long time. I guess within recent years, it's been more on and off. A digital friendship, one might say. I've known him since high school. What were we like 15, 16,
Yeah,
17 in that range?
yeah. It's hard. I mean, it's hard. It's been a while. So yeah, I mean that sounds right.
Yeah,
Right.
and we're kind of becoming old men now.
Yeah.
Or older. I don't
I
like
mean,
saying old.
approaching middle age. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, approaching in on middle age, making the final approach.
Right. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, for sure, man. This is actually when I was deciding that I wanted to do the podcast 2 years ago. Like I was coming up with the idea for this. I had like two or three people specifically in mind that I wanted to talk to, and you were number one on that list. Like you were absolutely number one. Like I must speak with Steven. Like I have to have him on. I have to talk to him, and I have to talk to him a lot. Like you were like the my dream guest, I suppose.
Guest.
Like
Yeah.
yeah, like my dream guest. I was just like I've got to have Steven on here because you
You got the
you're
dreamy voice and the dreamy brain.
yeah, you have the like
Right.
make the homies say ho and the girlies want to
Yeah.
scream.
Right. Right.
Yeah, like you have an amazing voice. That's true. You have a fantastic mind, and I just want to pick it. I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So like this is amazing. I'm really like like kind of nervous. I'm like like
Oh.
where do we start? There's so many things, so many places we could go
Yeah.
to, you know. So just tell me, just let's start where I've kind of started with Shane and Joey previously, and
Mhm.
say what is it that you do? Like if I mean if you want to say like what is it that you do?
Yeah, I have no problem with that. So, I stumbled into a professional IT job. I work for, I do support for the computers in medical research laboratories and the administration that's sort of built up around that research. There's probably more administration than there is research, as far as from my perspective, like who I support. Um, I do a little bit of SharePoint help. So that's what I do. I work at like a help desk. It's not like a call center. Um, I can go on site. I can create within limits, like within an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday sort of framework. I can create my schedule, make appointments, and come and go as I please, just so long as my tickets get closed and clients are happy. So
Right,
that's
as always, the satisfaction of the clients.
sure, yeah. But even that's within reason. I mean, it's a really good job. My boss has my back. He has all the tech's backs. It's a pretty awkward sentence. I mean, there have been times when they're not happy, and we weren't like reprimanded because our boss could see it was clearly like, you know, their expectations were unreasonable. But so yeah, that's what I do for money. That's how I sustain myself.
Yeah, that's the sustaining part. That's the hunter
Right.
gatherer piece of it.
Yeah. I always sort of say, and I mean, it's almost become cliche to me, but it's true. I always say I work in IT, but I'm not a tech geek, and that's pretty accurate. I'm not. I come home, my IT hat is off. I've left it at my office. I'm not obsessed with technology. I really don't care about it like outside of work. Um, like I said, I did stumble into this. I just happened to be um, sort of in the right place at the right time and saw like a student job, and then it evolved into what it is now. Um, as far as like what I do that sustains me like creatively, I don't know if you know, I have a poetry blog. I have made a pact with myself to write an original poem every day.
I
And
actually have, based on what I like, just posts online, let's say
yeah,
Facebook, based on Facebook from what I've seen, I figured you had something like akin to that going on, because I remember us trading like stuff with like what was that, LiveJournal, way back in
yeah,
the way
wow.
back.
You
And
journal, then live journal, yeah, yeah,
yeah, so like I assumed by your very nature and what I know of you that you had something like that going on, and then of course, with the evidence of from Facebook that you had
yeah.
something going on. So
I think
that's really cool. That's really cool. Is there like a link or something? Because
you
I'm
want me
gonna
to
write.
plug on your show.
You can plug if you desire. I mean, if you want to just message it to me and then I write it down or something and look at it on my own. But if you want to plug it, like please feel free.
I can.
I would like you to put any projects that you're working on out there, man. You're a
Uh,
beautiful person. And I wanna throw you out there.
I can do both. It's everydaypoetry.net. I wanted .com. That would have been like perfect. I think it's something like it's a WordPress blog. I think it's something like everyday poetry, subtitle a poem every day until I die. I think in July it'll be 2 years that I've been doing it. Written an
Oh,
original poem like every day.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was. It was a couple years ago. Well, it's been a few years ago. Um, my was having like not just marital problems, but social problems. I was kind of in a social coma, kind of just going through life. Um, I had gotten myself into some debt, and it was just not that I don't enjoy my job, but it was very robotic. And my wife asked me one night what I wanted to do with my life. And it was something that I hadn't thought about for years. It was sort of like, I mean, what kind of question is that? What I'm doing. And at that point I realized that it had been probably, maybe not a decade, that's stretching it, but probably like a good 5 years that I'd just not done anything very creative with myself at all. I just poured myself into going back to school, moving to Indianapolis, doing that student job, finally getting a bachelor's degree, and then just moving to that professional, the job I have now, getting certs. That's just been like the last, I guess maybe the past like 7 years. And so then in the last 2 years, I've like started to, I'm sort of on a journey of like self-improvement and all that. So that's long story, like why I write a poem every day. It's just one of the challenges I gave myself.
No, that's really cool, man. It seems strange to hear you say like that it had been from you, like
It is very, yeah, I know.
to hear you say it'd been 5 years since you've done anything creative, because you're one of the people that I would consider to be like a creative. Like that would be
Mm-hmm.
like if I had to title you or name you, like subject you to some kind of like, this is what I feel like you are. It's like a creative, like an absolute soulful
Mm-hmm.
creative.
Yeah.
So that feels so weird to say, like for you to
Yeah.
hear you say that. It's like it's almost like a Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like not at the time because it was so automatic, but coming out of it, it definitely felt like Twilight Zone material.
Right. Yeah.
Looking back and thinking, what have I been doing? Not like I've been making mistakes, but just nothing. Like I've not been doing anything.
Right. Yeah. It's just like it's not that I was just doing absolutely nothing. Like
Right.
what's going on here?
Right.
I kind of feel the same way, because I would generally consider myself also a creative. In more of a different way, I think, like where yours is more like your writing poetry has always
Mm.
been, I've always thought was really again, I'll go back to the word soulful. Like I feel like it's
Mm.
always very introspective.
Mm.
So, but I spent a long time working when I was working at the factory. I spent a long time feeling just pretty awful and sort of beaten.
Mm.
Like not so much physically, because to be honest, I never felt physically better in my entire life. I mean,
Sure.
I was lifting regularly. I was in probably the best shape of my life, but like internally, I was dying. Like
Yeah.
my I don't know. My soul was suffocating, I suppose. Like I don't know any other way to say it, but that way, just it just felt like in a way I was just suffocating
Yeah. I've worked in a couple
internally.
factories, and I mean, I would agree with that sentiment. I worked in one in Terre Haute. It was a Sony warehouse, and it was 4 days on, 4 days off of 12-hour shifts. And I mean, the 4 days off were awesome, but there was always that the inevitability looming in your head that you have to go back and do that again. So.
Yeah, like
And
that was
12
always.
hour, yeah, 12 hours was just enough literally to come home and eat and go to bed. Um, that was pretty bad, and not great money either. It was just temp work. So,
Right. Yeah, like that was my thing about one of the biggest things about working in a factory, because everyone was like, everybody is working for the weekend, and
yeah,
I'm like, why are we excited about the weekend? Because you know what happens after the weekend? Like Sunday
the,
night is the night of dread, because I
yes,
just know that tomorrow I have to be back at that place that I absolutely hate being at.
yes,
And
yes,
there's no reprieve, because I'm doing exactly the same job every single day. It's exactly the same thing. Like there is a minor amount of variation in, like,
yeah,
maybe one thing happens or another thing happens, but overall it's exactly the same thing that I'm doing. And so
yeah.
I can't, I'm not that person. Like I
We
know.
would get put on different things. Sorry to interrupt. I
No, no,
just
no,
wanted
go
to say,
ahead. Go
like,
ahead.
as far as like doing the same thing every day, it was like that there, except for we were temp, and it was just sort of like, we need you over here assisting on this machine, yada yada yada. So it could be different, only in the sense that you're on a different machine, but it's like taking packs of maybe 20 DVD cases off of a pallet and slamming it down onto a feeder and ripping the plastic off, that's holding it together, and making sure it's flush so that it can feed into the machine, nice and smooth, so that it could
Hmm.
just basically put together either a Blu-ray or a DVD, or like well, I guess it'd be a PlayStation game. But a lot of times they'd put me on box duty. So literally with my bare hands, I would get cardboard, it's not put together yet, but it's going to be a box. I take it off of a pile and then assemble it with my hands and some tape into a box, and that would be 12 hours of making cardboard boxes. That was a pretty long day. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, like it's, yeah, that's kind of what I meant. I mean, even if it's a different machine, it's still the same job.
Yeah.
Essentially, I worked. What I was doing was I was cutting steel tubing with steel cutting machines into transmission rings, and I mean, it's dealing with steel all day. Everything around you is steel all day. It's steel, it's oil, and then there's like oil dry, which is what you use to clean the floors and stuff like that. So I mean, that was the day. It was just like steel holding steel. My hands are getting cut, my arms are getting cut every single day. Like
Mm-hmm.
and during the summer it is unbearably hot, and you're dealing
Mm-hmm.
with machines that get extremely hot, because I mean, metal cutting metal, there's of
Mm-hmm.
course
It's
just
got to
going
be
to be
pretty hot. Yeah.
just the friction is insane,
Yeah.
and so it gets extremely hot,
Yeah.
and it's miserable. Like everything is steel, so if you bump into something slightly, like, and hit a bone, it's like you hit your knee, your shin, your elbow, forearm, it's gonna hurt almost all day for the rest of the day. And
Yeah,
then
sure.
so you have to deal with that, and then you slice open your hand, and then you have oil, like this sulfur and oil mix going into your, even if it's a slight cut, it burns. There's sweat.
Yeah.
Like, it was, like I said, you know what? It was actually, for the first few years, it actually was a very physically fulfilling job. Like, I felt like I was doing something, and then the droning monotony of it
Mm-hmm.
just started to seep in. Well, because
Yeah.
the first few years, like, I was getting moved around a lot. They had me doing, I mean, it was in the same department, but I was learning all the things.
Oh, I see.
You know, like,
Yeah.
learning how to do everything. So, like, learning how to run the different size parts and all that. So,
Yeah, there was a weird too, like I ran into this weird phenomenon at that Sony factory where if I worked on a machine, half the time the machine operator would tell me that they were wasting me by just being a guy that loaded, DVDs onto or cases onto a loader, but that message never got back to the temp company that I worked for. So I
Right.
eventually just got fed up with it, and I mean we were going to move out of Terre Haute anyway, but that was part of the impetus for finally leaving. Just getting fed up with, like, I think it was like $11 an hour or something, which isn't
Right.
terrible, but that's not great, especially for what they're demanding of you. 12 hours, 4 days on, 4 days off. It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that always goes back into what we were talking about just yesterday, like when we were having our conversation, when I was talking about how I hate money. I despise it. I think it's absolutely the worst thing,
Yeah.
morally as well. I mean, there is no price to our time. Like, there's
Yeah.
none. Like, there is no price that can be put on our time. And there's no way that we should feel guilty for allowing people to put a price on our time either, which is, like, people talk about the American dream, whatever that means. That, they call it the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Sure, yeah. That's good.
So I don't think that's mine. I think that's George Carlin.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
I think that, I was gonna say, I think that's actually George Carlin, from somewhere. One of his last couple. Well, he probably said that so many times.
Right.
But anyways, so yeah, it's just like you can't put a price on my time. Like, I just can't stand the, like, well, what you're going to do is you're going to graduate from high school and you're going to go to college, or you're going to go directly into the workforce and you're going to become, you're going to become just another cog in the machine, so that we can, like, it's meant to be like, your fulfilling life is going to be to get a job, get a house, get a dog and have some kids. And it's just like, I disagree.
And then live vicariously through your children until they move out, and then eventually you can retire, and then that's the end, and then it's over, right?
Yeah, and then you just make the slow, depressing slide towards death.
Right.
But you've lived a fulfilling life because you've reared some children that are going to just be fed right back into the meat grinder.
Sure,
that is,
yeah,
like, the American corporate industrial ridiculous complex that we live in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's I don't know. I probably sound so anti-American. People are gonna riot. No, I'm just playing. I have.
You're a socialist. You're a dirty socialist.
I'm not even a socialist. I guess
No.
according to a friend of mine, like, this is funny. According to a friend of mine, he told me to look into it because we were just speaking one night on our beliefs, like, because I believe in total sovereignty, right? Like, the sovereignty of self, like, where you have, like, as long as you're not hurting anyone, what you do and what you think is your business and your business alone.
Yeah.
and
libertarianism.
Yeah, libertarianism. So apparently, I'm libertarian, although I ascribe to no political affiliation whatsoever.
I see.
Like at all. Like I would not. I'm not a Democrat. Not anything. I'm not socialist. I'm not anything. Like I just hold these beliefs, and sometimes they agree, and sometimes they disagree with certain parties. I've never been someone who's like, I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. I can't.
Yeah,
I despise the bipartisan like government that we have anyway. Like I don't.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I think that's clearly just a contrivance to control the political climate.
Right, to pit one side against each other. It's like an easy what do I want to say, spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like
to put up in front of us.
Yeah, it just creates.
Like, did you see what the other side, the opposing side, wants to do to your side? You know, and then that keeps everything moving the way they want it to.
Yeah, it creates and perpetuates the momentum.
Right.
Because they can. It's essentially like wrestling, like sports entertainment wrestling.
Right.
Like we have the face and we have the heel, and each side. Yeah. So we have the face and the heel, and like this is. Oh, can you believe it that they said this? Oh my goodness.
Right.
They don't believe in your good wholesome freedom, and it's like both sides are saying it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I would agree.
I just don't. I can't. The whole political engine to me is bizarre, and especially and this goes back to what I was saying about like just like hating money, where I hate that it's okay to treat people as subhuman because money.
Mm-hmm.
Like money is the highest moral. Like you can trample all over people, but if it makes you more money, the capitalist religion is appeased.
Mm-hmm.
The God Almighty Dollar has is you have sacrificed the proper amount.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also. Corporations, as opposed to following environmental regulations, oftentimes they'll just pay the fine because they've got the money to just do what they want to do and pay the fine later. And that sort of goes to what you're saying as well. It's like, as long as they're paying, it's okay if they're trashing the landscape or whatever. Sometimes it's not even that they're that it's about aesthetics. I think the consensus is that climate change is real. So it's not enough to say, well, what about the economy? Well, without the planet, there is no economy, right? I know that's really simplistic, and obviously there's nuance, and I'm not trying to start like flame wars over whether climate change is man-made or not. I think that goes to the same point. I think a lot of times people immediately shut down. They don't want to listen to anything you have to say when you say climate change or pollution, because the first thing they think is, but I don't want to lose my job or whatever. And I get it, but that's another example of where, like you said, money is the highest good. And if it's going to hurt the economy, sorry, we're just going to keep burning coal. I don't care, right?
we're just going to continue with fossil fuels, because it's just, it makes us more money. Because it's a, what is it? It's a non-renewable resource.
Yes.
So we can put a bigger price on it. It's a bigger price because it's non-renewable, but it's the fuel source that we have to use. Even though we're going to work our best to suppress all this other stuff that's coming out that you can use other forms. But because like these fossil fuels are our only fuel source, even though there's this other shit. Well, you guys shut up over there.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just completely insane. Like,
yeah, it really is.
it's it's the most bizarre. Like, I think my biggest issue with money and the people who try to accumulate so much wealth that could never be spent in multiple lifetimes, like it could
Hmm.
not be spent within multiple lifetimes. Like, why do you even want that? Like, how is that even good? It's actually pretty unhealthy.
Yeah, it becomes like an ego thing, or I mean, I assume I don't know.
But I
A
mean,
habit?
to
I'm not sure.
yeah, I mean, it's a habit as much as anything else. It's clearly an addiction of some
Right,
kind.
right.
But
I mean, many
um,
people will say I want to leave something for my family, but I mean, that's not when you start to get to a certain there's like a threshold. Once you pass a certain level of money, there's no argument that you can really make that justifies it. Because, like you said, many lifetimes. So even if you leave it for all your children and their children, it's still like this enormous amount of money that maybe then they can each individually spend that portion of it, but they're set for life too. Like it's yeah,
yeah, which if your children are set for life, right? Then they like completely set and never have to contribute
right,
to society in any way, like
right,
in any way. And like I'm not totally all about like, oh, everything is all about the contribution to society, but like the evolution of humanity, of as a race, sort of requires that sort of stuff. Like
sure,
if we want to become, I always look at, and it's so weird. I always look at like Star Trek: The Next Generation. They had no money, and they're
hmm,
basically a peaceful society. Of course, later on, like you get weird corruption, but I always think back to that, and I look at that, and I was like, that sort of utopic idea is not completely insane, but it would require people to actually, instead of trying to contribute fiscally to
hmm,
society, why don't we contribute morally and ethically
hmm,
to society?
yeah,
Like, why can't we contribute like this? And again, that also comes back to why I wanted to do this podcast. I wanted to talk to people, and for an understanding of like, nobody wants to live this way. Like,
right.
nobody. Like, we
Unless
all,
you're one of the people that has the money, right?
yeah, unless you're
Yeah,
part of that very like that very small percentage of people that have that money, and it's
right.
just like it's so.
But even then, you can almost make an argument. I don't know if it would convince anyone, but if you have no struggle, if there's no challenge in your life, I don't. That sounds kind of boring. But
Yeah.
so if I can
I'm,
buy my way out of everything, I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't. I suppose it's not fair of me to like speak to that because I don't live that, never have, not going
yeah,
to. But
I would always say that people have, everyone has struggle in their lives. It's just
right,
different. It's
yeah,
uh
that's true.
it's all like life is so multifaceted.
Right,
There's an infinite number of permutations, right?
that's true.
To human existence. Because for every person that lives or has ever lived, that is a that is one facet with varying struggles of different kind. Like, you can't,
Hmm,
you
hmm.
things that you can't know because you only know yours.
Right.
So
Yeah, I guess it's hard for me. I'll agree with everything you just said, but it's hard for me not to scoff at a concern like, oh, I only made $3 million this year instead of five. I may lose my summer home. Like, okay, like I
well,
don't feel
that is
I don't
completely
feel bad.
unrelatable
You
though
know?
to
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
general populace. But
right.
see, here's one thing I have. If we're going to use this, like, just kind of within that vein, it might be a little tangent off of it, but I also don't believe. So, like, we have money, it's there, it's an
Hmm.
artifice. We all kind of believe that it's there and it has a worth, even though it has no worth whatsoever.
Right.
But if we're all gonna believe in this, like, we're all gonna agree that it's a thing that we're going to use. Um, what was I gonna say? I don't think that it's right for us to put in, and this is what makes me not a socialist, all right? Because I don't think that we should. I don't think we should have uh, I think government should regulate business, but to create social or to create governmental social mechanisms to do a lot of things that can be. How to explain that? I had actually just had it all like in a nice concise like way that I was going to say. Yeah, a little package, and I completely lost it. But I just don't think that. I just don't think that we need more government social programs. I just don't think. I don't think that that's a thing. I don't think we need to put more money into that. I think that we have plenty of things out there. They just need to be a bit more robust. Like I've actually been thinking something that could take away of a lot. And I actually heard it on the Joe Rogan podcast. I think him and Josh Zepps maybe were talking about it. But they were talking. Maybe it wasn't Josh Zepps. I think it might have been somebody else. They were discussing like the dole, and that we could easily afford like something like that where everyone gets $15,000, $20,000 a year, right? Because that would cut out a lot of governmental social programs. We could cut out like WIC, and we can cut out all this other stuff because it's just become cumbersome. It's become more bureaucracy than it needs to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to pay. All infrastructure comes with extra costs. So, I mean, in that sense, if you just doled out 15,000, then that cuts out a bunch of jobs that we have to pay for. Yeah, that's true.
It's like a lot of it's just become cumbersome bureaucracy as well, though, because as people like look at those things and go, well, people get shit for free from the taxpayers. There's no reason. Like this is where it almost seems like I disagree with myself, because it's just like I think there's a certain amount of like we should give back. Like I'm not against taxes. I don't believe in big government though. So like I think a thing like the dole could cut out a lot of governmental process, a lot of. I'm not a politician. I'm not someone who's knowledgeable about these things, but like just looking at it, it just seems to me that we've just created this bulky, slow-moving bureaucracy that has things in place that are meant to help, but then we put so much regulation on it that it can't help as much as it could or should. Because I don't think there's no reason for anyone to not have a home and for no one to have food, for people to not have food. In a first world country, in America, there's no reason that everyone shouldn't have health care. There's no reason that everyone shouldn't have a home. There's somewhere to live. There's no reason why people shouldn't be eating.
Yeah, and I guess that's all I mean by it's hard for me not to scoff at that situation I described. It's not to say that, and therefore I think that therefore socialism. It's not necessarily that. It's more of a my personal attitude toward the greediness. I can't relate to it, and you said as much anyway. You said you can't relate to that, so that's all I was trying to point out. I do. Yeah,
there's a certain level of disconnect from it because we just can't. I
do think that it is that is part of the problem. I don't know that full-blown socialism is the answer, but I do think that I tend to give the homeless people the benefit of the doubt over the CEOs. I guess maybe that's just a temperament, and maybe that's just always something that that I'll disagree with other people or disagree on. But as far as who's the bigger problem, the guy that doesn't have a job, that's taking advantage of the system. That just doesn't piss me off like it pisses a lot of people off. I don't understand why that's so infuriating to people. And it's not just that it doesn't piss me off emotionally, but just statistically or from a mathematical standpoint. I think that just one CEO is still, like, the fact that they're making so much more is just a bigger problem to me than.
Well, I think the idea that someone is like the guy or gal, whomever is sitting back taking advantage of the system,
Yeah,
is like, okay, so people want to, like, they want to jump on that because that seems like, it seems like, like bottom feeding, ill,
yeah,
grossness, sort of like a mentality. But like, corporations have that same bottom feeding mentality, that
exactly.
they're like trying
So for
to,
me, they're the bad guys.
what they're do like
That's
what they're doing is they're projecting what they've done onto people of a in a lower class. And it's that whole, and I hate it. I don't want to buy into it. I don't want to play into it either. The whole uh upper, lower, middle fucking divisiveness. I think that's counterproductive and counterintuitive. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, because it I look at it and I say, this is all fucking smoke and mirrors. None of this matters. Like, we're arguing about, like, oh, I don't want to give people my money that I worked hard for, but like, you're willing to give your life,
yeah. Your
essentially,
time,
your
that's
life,
cost.
yeah,
Yeah,
your life, to a company that does not care about you, that will fire you for no reason and has the right to fire you for no reason. Like, you're going to give your time and loyalty to that, as opposed,
that's
you know what I mean, as to then,
yeah.
in
I
opposition,
absolutely.
yeah, in opposition to, like, well, why can't I help my brother, man, and be like, you know what? Yeah, I don't mind. Like, there's no reason that people should be poor. There's like,
Yeah,
why is this even happening? Why are we allowing this to happen? Like, and like, but again, it breaks down to that, like, capitalism is the American dream and money is
hmm
the highest morality. Like,
right.
money is the highest good. It's the best.
Yeah,
It is the greater good. Like, if you are making money, then you are the this popped into my head and I mean it as a joke. You are the goodest.
yeah, sure.
You are the goodest. You are the
Yeah,
most good. You are the highest good. Even though, like, it's so funny because at the same time we demonize that.
yeah, yeah,
Like, it's such a strange dichotomy, to whereas we hold that up so high, but then we also say, I can't stand how this is a thing. Like, I can't, like, this is
yeah.
disgusting the
Right,
way that we're treated. But at the same time, we're like, well, we're not going to give our money to these people who have nothing, but
right,
we'll give our money and our time and
right.
pieces of our lives, large quantities of our life, to these people who are essentially using us and just extorting large quantities
Right.
of our time and our money, like, just completely draining of us of any thing that we have, like anything that we like, because the only thing we really have in our life is our time. Like, there's no,
Right.
like, our all we have is our time and our own thoughts. Like, those are the only things that we ever really have. And you can't ever get your time back. So, like, if
It's
you're
true.
just gonna waste your life, I can't say waste, because there's, like, some people who feel very fulfilled by with
Sure.
with those sorts of jobs, like factory jobs. But like, that other people can't choose another way of life, because then that seemed like the wrong way. And it's like, I'm trying to build a different life for me.
hmm
I don't
hmm
know. I mean, I guess that goes into more of my personal philosophy, where, like, I just have a problem with, again, that American dream thing that I talked about before.
No, I do too. I guess I guess what I would, if I was going to describe, like, fiscally, politically, like, where I fall or what I believe, it would be, I don't care how much money people make if, like you just said, all of if everyone's basic needs are met, then I don't have a problem. But since we have that problem, then it makes me upset that people are making like millions of dollars a year. That's when I get upset. That wouldn't bother me if we didn't have homeless people and jobless people and people that couldn't can't afford food or shelter. Um, but we do, and so that's when it for me becomes a problem. I'm not just trying, and I know that a lot of people that marks me as like a bleeding heart, but it just seems very basic to me that how can you say that's not a problem?
Yeah,
I think
like,
that guy that's holding a sign, I mean, yeah, maybe he's just lazy. That's obviously that's a possibility, but I'm willing to believe that probably he's just like, I don't know, maybe 5 instances of really bad luck and a few bad decisions away from where I am, like I could be that guy. I fully believe that. I don't, and maybe it's for other people, they don't make that connection, or they refuse to believe that like they could be that person. But sort of going back, tying in a little bit with what you said about people both hate I want to say the man. That's very cliche, but it's like it's the machinery that that enslaves them to, like you said, pay out their time, and watch their whole lives go by. They hate that, the machinery behind that, but then they scoff at the homeless guy. But like, he's there for the same reason. He's
Right.
you both hate the same thing, but he gets hate from both, the machinery and the people that hate that apparatus. So it's just very bizarre. That's why maybe it's because I've stepped back and looked at it a little bit more abstractly and not with my gut, but it's hard for me to relate to the vitriol that people have about the damn people with no jobs that are just lazy. Like I don't feel that. That's all I'm saying. Is some of it true? Yeah, I'm sure some of it's true. There's always going to be someone or some number of people that try to cheat the system at both ends of the spectrum, both billionaires and homeless or jobless people.
Well, I think the biggest cheat to the system is like this severe amount of corruption in the politics. I think that's the biggest cheat to the system right there. And people want to say there's like this very small minority of the people who are on these government assistance programs, right, that are taking advantage of it. Like people are like, oh my God, this is everywhere, and it's just like, no, it's not as bad as you think.
Right,
they're making
right.
it look that way, but it really isn't. It's a very, very, very small percentage from what I've been able to find. I'd have to go and look up some numbers, but from what I've seen, it looks like a very, very tiny minority. But there's so much. Again, and here again, I can't say, I don't have the numbers, I don't know, but it is apparent that there is an extreme amount of corruption in the government, like with just corporate money, like going everywhere, and just like they've created the system that we live in, where they get to be the bottom feeders, they're the top feeders, I guess. They're the top bottom feeders. I don't know, whatever you want to call them. Like
I know what you're saying, yeah.
They get to eat up everything, and then when there's nothing left for anyone, when there's not as much left for other people, it's the people with nothing left, and it's their fault, even though the system has been they've put it through a nice sieve that where they can just sieve all the money out into their hands.
Right.
But it's our fault because we can't pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. That's
right.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with it. I can't buy it. Like I can't eat that. You can't spoon feed me that.
Right.
Which is what you see. Like I see in the media. I see it all over Facebook. I see it all over Twitter. Like this insanity. Like just people are like, well, you don't work for a living, a full-time job in a factory. You're a piece of shit.
Right.
And
I also see people that I'll lay out all the points that I just made, and immediately there will be someone that has an anecdote, and that's supposed to completely destroy like everything that I've just laid out logically, and that drives me crazy. Like, yes, I get it. I mean, I even admitted in one of the points I made that there clearly are examples of people that are cheating the system, but be that as it may, but no, one good anecdote about my mom works for the unemployment office, and I mean, she knows like 3 people that blah blah. Like, I don't care. That doesn't. I know
Well,
that's going to happen.
I was gonna say, but yeah, how many? Okay, so your mom knows 3 people that are cheating the
Right.
system, but out of how many cases has she looked at?
Right.
Three people out of the hundreds and hundreds of cases that I'm sure that she's
Right.
looked over. You
But
know
those
what I
3
mean?
stand out because that it's they're it's not, I wouldn't want to say cherry picking, but they're already that's what they're looking for. What is it? Would it be confirmation bias?
Yeah,
You're
it's definitely
looking for that.
confirmation bias. Yeah, you're looking for it, so when you see it, you're like, "This is proof that it's
Yep.
fucked up," and it's just
Yes,
like,
exactly.
no, that's not proof that people. That yes, it's proof that people are doing it, but it's also, but those are it's a tiny, tiny minority.
Right.
Like you're talking about a very tiny piece of it. So like when they say, well, let's get rid of all these social programs because it's just wasting tax dollars. You know what's wasting tax dollars? 90% of our government, or I don't even know if it's 90%, maybe it's like 60 or 70% or something like that, but such a large portion of our governmental budget going into military operations.
No, I would agree.
That is the biggest financial travesty of our fucking country.
Right. And it's not benefiting the troops. That's another thing that not so much anymore, but it was about, I don't know, 10 years ago. Is that when support our troops kind of started, that slogan?
Well, that was like all that really weird sort of nationalistic stuff that happened
Right.
when Bush came into office.
Right.
Like this whole like 9/11,
Yeah.
nationalism, like this, just like this so weird, like really gross, toxic nationalism that started like, oh my God, which started a whole slew of like renewed bigotry. Like I don't like to call it racism because technically speaking there's only one race, but like, so let's say
Sure.
it's more like social bigotry,
Right,
so like
right.
but it just renewed this whole like, you're not from here, you're not one of us, you are
Right.
the enemy thing.
It upsets me that that sort of thing is used to get people riled up, excited, and they overlook that we spend so much on our military. But what makes me upset is that doesn't benefit the troops. That goes into the pockets of contractors. Those people they aren't boots on the ground. They aren't military. They're just military contractors, and they're making millions of dollars, and it has nothing to do with defending our nation or things that should make us beat our chests and be proud to be an American. Like, this has nothing to do with anything. It's just making a bunch of money for people that are in the military tech industry. That's it.
Yeah.
That's disgusting to me too. But as soon as you mention that we shouldn't be spending so much money on military, then of course there's going to be someone that says 9/11. There's going to be someone that says Paris attacks, and it's just always in people's heads that's something that we should continue to do. Like, it's unquestionable. You shouldn't even challenge that we spend so much money on the military.
No, that's the thing. Like that they've created that seed,
right?
In the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
Like of the populace. I can't help but be amazed and awed by that, really. Like, as much as I'm disgusted by it, it's also like, you guys have really done a good job of
sure
pushing.
Yeah.
But it's really just obfuscation of the reality of what's going on. Like, support our troops, and it's I know veterans, man, and I respect what they've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a horrible.
I do support the troops. The troops have nothing to do with the decision making process or the budget or anything to do with that.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with that. Like, I support them. I support them as people, and
Right.
they should be respected. And
Yes.
I have an opinion on it that I'm not going to voice here. I may talk to you about it later. I actually have a couple veteran friends that I talk to, and they completely agree with me. But like, people will fucking flame me to no end if they hear what I have to say.
Okay.
So I'd prefer not to bring it up, at least
All right.
this early, but like
Okay.
there's a really good conversation. And the thing I told you, the thing I said, it goes back to this thing I said yesterday, and this. Oh God, I want to break down the social justice warrior stuff too, but because it breaks into that. It breaks into that mentality of like all you have to do is say you are like you can just use these trigger words, right? And I hate saying trigger word, but like you can use these triggering things. You can say 9/11, or you can say support our troops, or you're not a patriot, or you hate America, or things like that.
Socialist.
You are a socialist, and you can immediately it immediately just destroys whatever nuanced discussion that someone is trying to have.
Right. Clearly, at that point, you've won the argument when you say something like that, right? I mean, that's what most people think. Yeah.
But you've created nothing. You've done nothing.
Right.
Like you've just said, 9/11, and it's just like that. What does that even mean? That does not mean anything. It has no bearing on this conversation. Like,
Right.
It has nothing to do with this. Like I don't understand why you're even bringing that up. Like
right.
Because like whoa, stop. Like
right.
Like that whole thing. Like the repercussions of 9/11 is like it. Oh my God. I don't know if I want to go there.
That's fine.
I don't know if
I just wanted to make it. I just wanted to make the point that it's a weird thing to hear someone tell me like I don't support the troops. It's just very bizarre. Or it's sort of like actually it's exactly like you just said. It admits of no nuance, and that bugs me a lot. I'm big on nuance. I think all of life is nuanced. There's gray area. It's the same thing as I don't like police brutality. That doesn't mean that I don't want there to be police. It doesn't mean that I don't support good police. That's not the same thing. They're not. Those don't have to be
mutually exclusive.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, exactly. I can criticize something and still enjoy it, or still appreciate it and see its value. I think that should be obvious, but a lot of people can't even see that. It's like impossible for them to see.
Well, it's just like the extreme polarization that's caused it's like you're either with us or against us mentality.
Yeah.
And they will literally use what is that word that you used, or the phrase that you used, where you will just take whatever that to prove your point. How did you say that when we were talking about the people taking advantage of like the social welfare systems?
I forget what I said. That's really embarrassing.
No, I forgot too. Like I find it really embarrassing. Like just like
we
man,
just
like,
went over this. Yeah.
We just talked about it, and now I can't remember. Ugh,
Yeah.
The brain. Of course, I've drank like a pot of coffee, so.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I switched to green tea from coffee.
I probably should, but there's a certain like with lifting, I really like the physically animating.
Yeah.
Of like the strong. I mean, because I drink my coffee completely black.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
So and apparently, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and a couple friends of mine, and they said, "Oh, you drink your coffee like the color of your heart." Black.
Yeah. No, like well, I mean, it has no calories that way, right?
Yeah,
It's a really great drink in that sense.
Yeah, it's actually just drinking coffee that way is actually because sugar is actually really bad for your body. It's
right.
Like it's bad for your body on the level of like doing seriously hard narcotics is bad for your body. I think that's a thing that people have completely forgotten because our food is so saturated, especially the more highly processed the food that you get. Like they put sugar in everything just to make it taste better, and plus sugar is extremely addicting. Like it's very addictive to your body, and then like your body starts to just use. And this is why they always say have a low fat diet, is because what your body does is it starts to use sugar instead of fats for energy. so that when you're eating the fats, it just stores it instead of using it. It's like look up ketogenic diet, and it goes over like the
Okay.
reasonings behind it. And that's the stuff that you had asked me about before, and I was telling you
Yeah.
about. Like, look
Yeah.
up the ketogenic diet, and there's also like there's some things that you can buy that'll help you stay in ketosis and stuff like that. I'm as soon as I have better means, like financial means, I'm going to be going on a ketogenic diet.
Nice.
It's just much healthier. But it can also be a precarious situation, because if you carbo load one day, you'll take yourself out of ketosis, and you'll like the weight loss and the energy that you have will it'll take time to build back to it without
Sure.
this chemical mixture that you can take like in a drink or something like that that'll put you right back in ketosis. But you have to be in ketosis first.
I see.
Again, something
It's very
I
interesting.
got off of Joe Rogan's podcast.
Oh, cool.
They were talking about it. He's an intellectual meathead, a philosophical meathead more. And I love him to death, and sometimes I get very annoyed by him, because he often has a hard time appreciating. See, at the same time, I adore him though, because of his ability to see through some stupidity and like just
Sure.
bizarreness. But at the same time, there are things that he's like, I don't understand why this is a thing, because he can't appreciate the beauty and the ridiculousness that is something. But then he'll
Sure.
turn around and just like completely do the opposite thing with something else. And it's just because you can see his built up over time. What's the word? The things that he likes and doesn't like, even though it doesn't make sense. Whatever.
Yeah.
There's a term for it that for some reason is escaping me. I'm sure like right
when
after
you
I
need
get
it
done
most,
with the
when you're live, right?
yeah, when I'm live, I cannot remember, but
Right.
like you get me off the recording, and all of a sudden I become like so very eloquent.
Sure. Yeah.
It's-
I think I feel like I saw Joe Rogan, or maybe I just read about it in a forum. It was a few years ago. I looked at, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Is it nootropics?
yeah, nootropics. Uh-huh.
And I always wondered if there was any more research into whether those do what they say they do, like on the bottle.
Yes, there are some. There are
Yeah.
some that are just that work on the placebo effect, right?
Sure. Yeah.
'Cause that's always very strong. Like people don't want to think about it, but our will has a very strong effect on our
Right.
body. But there are nootropics that do work. He actually
Yeah.
has a website, and I'm gonna plug it a little bit, because I've actually bought some of the products from there.
Yeah.
And I bought his Alpha Brain, which is a nootropic that is on his website, which is like
That must be
onnit.com.
what I saw. Yeah.
And it is very effective. It is
Oh,
very
cool.
effective. Like there's a much higher level of focus, especially with me, with whatever sort of like again
Attention. Yeah.
attention deficit like problems that I have. I mean,
Yeah.
which is clear. You were sitting here talking to me, jumping subjects, can't remember words, like
Right.
things like that. But there's definitely a very strong focusing effect, and it feels very good. I actually like it very much. And again, when I get to better means, I will be purchasing those again. But that's onnit.com, Alpha Brain. Like if you ever get a chance to get some extra money, like if you have like an extra $30, you can get one bottle. It'll take like one a day. It'll last you a month.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think it's worth it.
Right. No, it's yeah. I mean, if it works, yeah, it sounds worth it. Right now, my budget is, as far as that supplements go, it's all going toward my heart. I'm having really bad palpitations, and I've been trying to figure that out for like basically all year. So
Yeah, I meant to
Stuff
talk to
like
you.
hibiscus and hawthorn berry and stuff like that. But
Yeah, I was gonna say I
um,
meant to talk to you about that, like uh, off the mic
off
at
the
one point.
record,
Yeah, like off the record at one point because I didn't want to. I didn't know how much of that you wanted to talk about, but you're my friend and I care about you. I wanted to have that discussion with you
well,
about it.
doctors are. I mean, I've talked to two now. They're positive. Um, Obviously, they can't be certain, but they both. This is two different opinions. Well, it's the same opinion, two different professionals. They don't believe that there's probably anything wrong with my heart, like structurally. One of my doctors actually has palpitations, the same kind that I have. Palpitations is kind of a vague word.
Yeah.
For me, it makes my heart speed up, and it's like a sudden onset. There's nothing that seems to trigger it. Definitely not psychological. It's not a panic attack. There is no panic, especially now that I'm so used to it. Maybe at first when I didn't know what was going on, um, and that's it feels sort of uncontrollable. There's some breathing techniques that I can try, and eventually that'll make it stop. And there have been a few days that I've had like 15 of them throughout the day. A few nights ago, I had them sort of keep me up at night because I would wake up. And this doctor, she has them too, but they're manageable now, and I think she just takes a beta blocker, which I guess just slows your heart rate.
Yeah.
So if my echocardiogram today, the ultrasound of my heart, rules out that I have structural damage, which is what they think is going to be the case, then I'm perfectly fine in that sense. My options are live with it or take a beta blocker or a very invasive process. It's called a cardiac ablation. So basically what causes it is there's tissue built up around the heart that's causing, I believe it's electrical, it's building up electricity, and then there's so there's like an extra beat, and that speeds the heart up because that's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be one pulse, one beat. That's the way it's supposed to work.
Right.
So an ablation, literally, the first part of it, they put basically they monitor and they find out what tissue is causing that to happen, and then they take a catheter up through your leg, or it can be open heart, and they burn that tissue away. The prospect of not having them sounds awesome, but that process, that doesn't sound awesome.
No, I was gonna say that sounds a little scary, really.
Right.
Like,
So I think it's going to be more me deciding whether I want to take a beta blocker or just do nothing. Because
right.
if there's no problem with my heart, they are not a sign of anything else. It's just I just have them. I just have that extra tissue, and that's just going to happen.
Right.
My mom has them too. It's probably genetically. We have really tissuey hearts, or just that extra tissue. So
very tissuey.
Yeah, very pillowy. I don't know. I don't know.
Pillowy.
Yeah.
Fluffy, cloud-like.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, because I have to imagine it's kind of fleshy and whatever there.
Yeah.
So that's. But before I got those, before that was sort of explained to me, finally, I was doing a lot of trying home remedy type things, like people say that hawthorn berry really helped me with my whatever, and so drinking like hibiscus tea and trying stuff like that.
Right.
I don't know that it's not helped, but it's definitely it's not cured me. So but I mean, talking to my doctor, it may never be cured unless I get that very invasive procedure done. So
right. That's just like I don't know, it's like a weird thought. Like, it's kind of scary in a way,
It was weird to see my hard on the ultrasound because for a little bit of the process I was able to be on my back, and they were, they have this wand that's creating the image, and to see my heart, it was very, I don't know, it was very is more visceral than I've ever thought about. I obviously that you have organs and you're basically a piece of meat, right? You're just an animal,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
but you don't think about it in a real visceral way throughout the day, or at least I don't. But to see my heart beating and the shape of it and everything, it was interesting.
Yeah, that would be very cool to see, though.
Yeah. I mean, obviously not exactly what it looks like. That would be really insane, but because it's just an ultrasound. But yeah.
Well, to actually see the flesh, I mean, that would require them to crack your chest open.
Right. I mean, if I got that open
that.
heart, I guess technically they could. I don't know if they have to put you out. I guess there is the possibility that I could watch it happen, but
right. I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to see that, really.
I don't know either. Actually, I didn't. Before today, I didn't look up what an echocardiogram was because I didn't. If there was something, I feel like I had to have it done to rule things out. But if there was going to be something very invasive about it, I just didn't want to know. I just wanted to go in there and do whatever I had to do.
Right.
Luckily, it was no big deal. So, other than them rubbing goop all over my bare chest, kind of bizarre.
Yeah, I just that just makes me think about what is it, it just reminds me of my own existential angst,
Right.
Like that whole inevitable mortality.
Yeah.
Because no matter what we do, if we have to have these surgeries to stay living, I mean, we're still eventually not going to be.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, that has gone through my mind a lot this year. It's hard to avoid. I mean, heart problems, maybe brain problems are worse, but there's not a lot worse than,
Right.
possible. No, there can't. I mean, there just can't be. Heart failure is the worst. There's what trumps that?
I would say, okay, heart failure. I don't know, permanent brain damage stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's terrifying.
True. That's true. I guess I'd.
But I mean, no, heart failure is I mean, that's literally the heart of the machine.
Yes,
the
exactly.
biomechanical machine that we have.
And I mean, I'm
here.
not kidding myself. I smoked for 12 years. It's very possible that maybe I have heart disease. But it was
Right.
it was pending my results, which, like I said, they were almost certain that it's going to be fine. I'm okay. So, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, I smoked for 20 years, and I think about that so much because I quit.
Right.
I quit last year, and I think about that so much. There still is the chance that something
Right.
Involving that is going on right now, and then I'll get to reap the rewards of that
Sure.
a little later in life. It could happen now, though. I mean, that's the funny thing about it. It's just at any point in time, I can reap when I've sown with my body at any time, because in our youth we think we're invincible and we just do a lot of stupid things.
I remember specifically mocking this idea as a teenager. I mean, I have a very vivid memory of being in a car and someone wanting me to light their cigarette or bum them a cigarette, so I lit it for them. I was already smoking, and I remember sort of double fisting, smoking both cigarettes, and sort of laughing at the idea that this was terrible for me.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
so I mean, I did stuff
mocking
like that.
mocking that very no, I'm with you, man. And to be fair, and to be fair, I'm against anti-smoking.
Yes, I
because I'm totally pro. We have the decision to do whatever we want with our own bodies. That's
well, some of it's just ridiculous. I don't understand. there are public parks that people want to ban smoking in. The university that I work for, every campus is smoke free, and I'm thinking like it's the air that's going to disperse too fast into the air. It's also an urban campus, the one I work on. So this is what bugs me. It's metropolitan, so there are cars going by constantly. Nobody covers their mouths as they walk down, the busy street with all the car exhaust, But if someone's smoking a cigarette, people like cover their mouths, and it's so snooty to me and just illogical, because just because you can't see the car exhaust doesn't mean that that's also, that's there too. But we're in the open air. That's the whole point, right? It's not going to kill you. I get really upset too with secondhand smoke statistics because they never mention distance. It's always just secondhand smoke does this. At what distance? That's not scientific. Anyway, that's sorry.
No,
I get
I'm
really,
I'm with you, man. Like, I don't smoke, I quit, but I'm still
Yeah,
all
me
for
too.
people having the decision to like the
Right.
choice to smoke. Like, just feed me the information. And this was something like we touched on yesterday. I don't want to talk about the reasons like that we went into why, but I think all things medical should have like complete, actually I think we should have this anyways, but complete transparency so that we
Yeah.
get to make informed decisions about
Right.
everything, instead of like obfuscating the truth or bringing
Right.
light to only certain, like not creating half truths, but creating half truths to support. And this goes back to that phrase that you used that I still can't remember what it was, creating half truths and bringing light, those sorts of things to prove your point. Even though they don't do that, you're just creating the illusion that it does.
Right. I mean, yeah, because if you're literally saying that in a park in the open air, especially with lots of like greenery, and if you're saying like 30 feet away that my smoking a cigarette is going to give you cancer, I mean, you're just being difficult at that point. That is just definitely not scientifically. Show me the science that proves that. That's silly. That's nonsense.
It's
There's no
like
way that could be true.
it's like my new favorite. It's my new favorite spectator sport, and it's called recreational outrage.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I love to spectate that stuff because it gives me great amounts of entertainment. Like, just
Right.
like a cornucopia of entertainment. Like,
I mean,
it's such a
if that were true, we couldn't have parking lots. We couldn't have parking garages. We couldn't have sidewalks close to the street. We'd all be dropping dead from the car exhaust because, well, it doesn't matter if it disperses in the air,
wow,
right?
because car exhaust is multiple times worse than like just. I would imagine orders of magnitude
Right.
worse than cigarette smoke, even
Right.
secondhand,
And coming out of a much larger cylinder with much more force.
with much more force. It's far more toxic.
Right.
To the like, yeah, the whole thing is just really insane. I mean, that goes back to, but I mean, I can tie that back into my argument about fossil fuels that I
Right.
sort of
Yeah,
subtly
sure.
posed
Yeah.
earlier. Was like, it's insane. Like, we shouldn't do that. But like, if we want
Right.
to use it, I mean, we can have the option. Like, whatever. But I mean, yeah, just like informed choices. Like, yeah, okay, I understand that can give me cancer, but like, if I want to smoke it because I enjoy, because it actually is sort of a nootropic. It does actually have, well, from what I've heard, again, like, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a
Mhm.
I'm not a
Medical professional.
I'm not a medical professional or anything, but they're like, people have for a long time said that it has sort of like mental benefits. Like, I have to say, it helped me focus. Like, it
The
always helped
nicotine,
me.
is that what you're
Yeah,
specifically?
the nicotine, like, nicotine has a very sort of nootropic. It has nootropic qualities where
I can see
it helps with mental acuity.
Right. Maybe a little short-lived. That was maybe part of the issue with it, but yeah.
Well,
I would
yeah, but
agree.
but it's very strong. Like, I've always
Right,
felt like
right.
very focused while I was smoking. Like, my ability to think. I mean, I definitely have become more scatterbrained since, but like that can be attributed to anything because my life has
Sure.
changed drastically from like from year to year, you know, like so to say that it's changed because of smoking or not smoking or whatever, just there's too many variables to
Right,
even
right, right,
measure.
right. Yeah.
But I just, yeah. Again, that goes back to my personal sovereignty thing. Like, just give me my choice. Don't try to take away from it because, like, you have these feelings, like
Right.
that you're feeling.
Right.
And this goes into something I wanted to touch on. I'm hoping that we get to like actually record another one of these very soon because
Yeah, sure.
we're coming close to a time where we should probably shut down because it's been
Right.
like we're
This
like
is
an
an
hour.
episode's worth. Yeah.
But and I'd like to talk about it more, but like the social justice warrior thought control weird you can't have an opinion, like it really is bizarre thought control, and that goes into like the mentality, the psychology about support the troops, that goes with the psychology of like smoking is bad and
Mm-hmm.
money is good and capitalism and all this stuff. It's like that's sort of like very subtle, like almost overt covert at the same time sort of thought control, where it's just like you can't have an opinion beyond it because you can immediately be discredited. Like if I were to say I don't agree with the social justice warrior movement, I'm immediately an anti-feminist. I'm
Yeah.
immediately an anti-feminist, like that immediately, and that's not even close to true. Like if anybody knows anything about me, like they know that is in no means true about me. I don't feel that way at all.
Yeah. It's hard to
But
have a nuanced opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't do that. You can't have a nuanced opinion, especially about these very polarizing issues,
Right.
because it turns into like one side or the other. You are either for or you are against.
I think part of that is because of we live in I mean, if you could call this generation anything, and this is going to definitely make me sound like a, what is it, cantankerous old man. But it's the TLDR generation. It's like to have a nuanced point, you have to make your point, and that takes some words. That takes like paragraphs to do. Nobody wants to read that, so you can't. You don't even have the opportunity to have your point like scan. Like they're not even going to read your point. So
Because I just say sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
Go
you're
ahead.
good. Yeah. No, I was just rambling more. I was digging
I was
more into
I was
that
just
point.
gonna say no. I mean I completely agree with you because it's like I remember back in English class when they were teaching you how to write like when you're writing some kind of documentation on a subject, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where at the beginning, like within your first sentence, in your first paragraph, you essentially make your point, right? It's a very
That's what
raw.
your main idea is.
Yeah, that's where your main idea is. With like you use your the first sentence is like the very at its most raw, and then you define it more in your first paragraph, and then you go into detail in later paragraphs, and then you summarize in the end. So that I remember that is ridiculous because I was awful.
Yeah.
I was awful at writing papers. But with the TLDR generation, I like to call it the generation Twitter.
Sure. Yeah.
The 140 characters,
right,
like this is what it is. Like you have to get your point across in just so many,
right.
So it doesn't leave room for the nuance. But so what they do is they just read that initial raw thing. I say, I disagree with the social justice warriors. I'm immediately labeled all these other things that aren't even true because you can't see past that initial bullet point. The only thing I am is that initial bullet point now.
Right.
So and then I can be immediately discredited with anything that I have to say after that because you can pick pieces out of what I said and turn it into make it into whatever context that you choose.
Right.
And again, that's the TLDR generation, like you described it. I think that's actually a very, very, very accurate sort of summation.
I think so.
Or generalization.
When I went back to school, I had a lot of online classes, and one of the online classes there was something set up. It's called No, I'm not going to be able to remember what it's called because I want to say The Social Network, and that's that movie. That's not what it's called. But anyway, it was like a Facebook clone, but for education. So our assignments were to post something, like 2 things every week, and have like maybe 5 comments that we do on other people's posts. So we're literally going through the motions of social media for our grade in that class. It drove me insane because it was all just, oh, this is really cool. I really like what you said here. Like, it's just so people. I think that social media is bad for debate because people are afraid to dislike things. It's either you like what I'm saying or you hate me and totally disagree. But like, no, everyone's afraid to be like, I see what you're saying, but I don't agree, and I have these counterpoints to offer. No one's willing to do that on Facebook, and no one was willing to do that on this Facebook clone that we're using for a course at a major university. It was pretty disgusting to me, but that, because again, like an old man, it was just sort of, I had a moment like, this is where the world is heading. It's terrible, but yeah, it is.
You should check out, if you haven't already, John Ronson. So You Have Been Publicly Shamed. I think that's what it's called. It's his book.
Oh, I think that's on my I think I actually have that on an Amazon reading list to check out at some point. I've heard of that. Yeah. But go ahead. Sorry, but it's good to.
Yeah, I
for
mean,
the listeners.
I kind of skimmed and stuff through it. But I want to dig into it. I'm actually like a kind of a closet fan of. I guess not a closet fan, since I'm like gonna just sort of announce it now. But like I like John Ronson's stuff. Like, you should also check out some of his stuff from back in the '90s. He did a 5-part documentary on the real rulers of the world. It's really cool. It talks about the Bilderberg Group and like all this other stuff, like Ruby Ridge. If you're familiar with all these different things, and like governmental control things, it's really good. But anyway, so like now he's doing a lot of stuff with like the talking about the social justice warrior movement, and like how people are afraid to have like a nuanced opinion, not just nuanced, but like opinion that might not be the mainstream or acceptable mainstream opinion, because they can be completely socially ostracized. And it's so bad. Like on Twitter, like, say someone is a fan of someone that's like a sort of like quasi-famous or pseudo-famous like social justice warrior, and then it gets like pushed to those people. They can disseminate it to such large groups that are just literally going to destroy you, and you would have to completely remove yourself from social media. And because you can't have an opinion that might even slightly differ from what they feel should be the acceptable level. Like you just say, like, I agree with your points, but I disagree with some of this other stuff because that seems really crazy and thought controlling, and I'm not sure where you're going with that. Like, that seems a little weird. But like now you can't have that opinion. At least you can't publicly have that opinion. Right. And then when you do, and if you get found out,
you have that opinion.
Yeah, you can't admit, not anywhere where it's going to reach any sort of real social, where it could have a social repercussion.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like, I think a lot of people need to really look at like our society and just like look at how bizarre and crazy that it really is.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because like, a lot of times, even when I disagree with people, if I can hear, I guess what I'm saying is I'm happy as long as they can give me their points and I can see that there's nuance in what they're saying. Then it's not so much that I care that we disagree, because now I can actually maybe learn something, maybe not change my mind, but at least you're informing my opinion, and I think that's all good. I don't know why people resist that, but
I don't know.
Obviously,
I would,
it's social, like we've been sort of hinting at. But
I would always rather have an in-depth conversation. Like I'm definitely not of the TLDR generation, because I would
right,
rather like and again, social media, the text base like that it's difficult to have that conversation because nobody wants to sit there and read a wall of text, and it's much easier just to have like an actual verbal conversation about it.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
It's much because you're more willing to actually listen to counterpoints, but I'd always rather have, whether it's the text-based social media or otherwise, the conversation of
Yeah,
like why you feel the way you do. And like, I'm not sitting here trying to discount your opinion. Like, I want to know why you feel this way, and if we can have an actual discussion, even if neither of our minds are changed by it, maybe we will always at the end be more enlightened about it.
right,
Like, no matter what, if you listen to me fully without prejudice and I listen to you fully without prejudice, we will both come away from that more enlightened about what we've just discussed.
I agree.
Like, definitely, absolutely. Well, I think
Um,
you know what, I think this is actually a really good place. Like, we just made a
just
good bullet point for the end.
yeah, no, yeah, I agree.
Steven, I want to have you back on so
Yeah,
badly.
sure.
So like, what we had discussed previously about the next one, if you want to do that again, we can just come up with, like, do it as we had planned, as we had talked about
Yeah,
originally, and we can record another one because I really want to sit here and talk to you again. And I think
yeah, we
everyone's
didn't
gonna.
discuss that at all, did we?
No,
Oh,
we
that's
didn't. We
that's
didn't
interesting.
discuss. Yeah,
I
we
wasn't even
didn't.
thinking about that
Yeah, like
until
we didn't
now.
discuss it. It was in the back of my mind, and there were a couple
Yeah,
times I started to lead it that way, and then I was like, you know what? I like where we're going here, so let's just
yeah. No, it
let
was
this
a really
finish up.
good, yeah, organic conversation. So
Yeah, it's like, this is again, like I said, like as we were talking about it, I prefer it to be more organic and stay within
yeah,
that sort of stay that way, because you'll always get a better, raw, I feel more honest opinion, as opposed to like I sat here and thought about it.
yeah, right.
I mean, there's nothing
Wrote a
wrong with that.
thesis
There's
and yeah,
like, but there's definitely some great things to that, because some of the things that we talked about, I've had a chance previously to sit and think about and dissect and look
hmm
up and
hmm
form an opinion. But yeah, so this was really great, dude.
yeah,
Again,
I agree.
I very much want to talk to you again. I hope everyone loves this conversation as much as I did.
Yeah, me too.
Uh, but so thanks for everybody for coming, and thank you again,
Thanks.
Stephen. Thank you
Yeah.
again so very much.
Yep.
So this is Why So Serious, and we got into Why So Serious.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you again, Stephen.
Yep. Thanks.